He's a manipulative criminal and deserves to rot in prison, the woman shouted in the courtroom, fake tears running down her face as she pointed at the shocked father sitting in the defendant's chair. The judge seemed convinced, and the police officers who had arrested him nodded in agreement. The man's fate appeared sealed. What they didn't know was that the two little girls sitting in the front row weren't just watching their father's trial. They were waiting for the exact moment to reveal the lie that would save his life. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Daddy, is Mommy watching us from heaven? Maya asked as she struggled with her math homework at the kitchen table. Mark Thompson looked up from helping Mia with her spelling assignment. His heart tightened as it always did when the twins mentioned Laura. I believe she is, sweetheart. And I think she's very proud of both of you. Even when I can't figure out fractions? Maya pushed her worksheet away with a frown. Especially then, Mark said, gently sliding the paper back toward her. Because she knows you'll keep trying. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows of their modest Oakville home, illuminating the family photos that lined the walls. Laura's smile seemed to brighten every frame, her presence still filling their home 3 years after breast cancer had taken her away. At 42, Mark had settled into a routine that revolved entirely around his 8-year-old daughters. His job as an accountant at Palmer Financial provided enough for them to live comfortably in this quiet Illinois suburb, though there was little left for luxuries after the medical bills. 5 more minutes, then we need to get ready for school, Mark reminded them, glancing at his watch. Who wants blueberry pancakes tomorrow? Me! Both girls shouted in unison, their matching brown ponytails bouncing with excitement. 6 months earlier, life had taken an unexpected turn when Mark literally bumped into Jessica Winters at Oakville Coffee Shop. He had been rushing to work, coffee spilling as they collided. "I'm so sorry," Jessica had said, though Mark later realized she had been walking directly toward him. "Let me buy you another one." Her smile was dazzling, her business suit impeccable. When she introduced herself as the owner of Oakville Financial Solutions, Mark had been impressed. Their conversation flowed easily as they discovered they both enjoyed hiking and classic movies. Before he left, Jessica had written her number on his coffee cup. "Call me," she'd said. "Everyone deserves a second chance at happiness." Those words had resonated with Mark, who hadn't dated since Laura's death. Their whirlwind romance progressed rapidly. Jessica was beautiful, successful, and seemed genuinely interested in his life. When she proposed after just 3 months, Mark had been surprised but touched. "Life is short," Jessica had said, holding his hands. "I want to spend mine with you and the girls." The twins had been less enthusiastic. "She smiles funny," Mia had whispered to her sister one evening when Jessica was visiting. "Not like Mommy did." "What do you mean?" Maya had asked. "Her eyes don't smile with her mouth," Mia explained. "And she moves Mommy's pictures when Daddy isn't looking." Despite the twins' reservations, Mark married Jessica in a small ceremony 4 months after they met. He was ready to move forward, to give his daughters a complete family again. Now, as Mark helped the girls put their homework away, he felt grateful for Jessica, even if she sometimes seemed distant with the twins. "Breakfast is ready," he called out, placing plates of scrambled eggs and toast on the table. "Jessica!" he called upstairs. "Food's getting cold." "I have an early meeting," Jessica called back, her heels clicking on the hardwood as she descended the stairs. She was already dressed in a tailored navy suit, her blonde hair perfectly styled. "You've had a lot of early meetings lately," Mark said, trying to hide his disappointment. Jessica kissed his cheek quickly. "End of quarter. You know how it is." She grabbed a piece of toast. "I'll be home for dinner, though. We can talk about that California trip I mentioned." "California?" Maya looked up. "We're going to California?" "Maybe someday," Mark said, noticing how Jessica avoided looking directly at the twins when she spoke to them. "San Francisco has excellent private schools," Jessica said, checking her watch. "We should discuss options soon." Before Mark could respond, Jessica was out the door, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume. "Daddy, I don't want to go to California," Mia said quietly. "Mommy isn't there." Mark ruffled her hair. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Nobody's moving anywhere right now." After breakfast, Mark was washing dishes when he noticed Jessica had left her coffee mug on the counter. As he reached for it, he saw her phone beside it. "Girls, Jessica forgot her phone. I'd better call her office to let her know." Just then, through the kitchen window, Mark saw 2 police cars pull into the driveway, lights flashing but sirens silent. "Who's that, Daddy?" Maya asked, peering around him. "I'm not sure. Maybe something happened in the neighborhood." But the sudden knot in his stomach told him otherwise. The sharp knock on the door made them all jump. When Mark opened it, he found himself facing 3 stern-looking officers. The one in front was tall with salt-and-pepper hair and deep-set eyes that had seen too much. "Mark Thompson?" the man asked, showing his badge. "I'm Detective James Wilson with the Oakville Police Department." "Yes, that's me. Is something wrong?" "Mr. Thompson, I'm placing you under arrest for embezzlement and fraud." Detective Wilson's voice was flat, emotionless. "What?" There must be some mistake. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. "Daddy?" Maya's voice trembled behind him. "No mistake, sir. We have evidence that you transferred $250,000 from Oakville Financial Solutions to an offshore account in your name." "That's impossible. I would never—" "We have bank statements, signed documents, and email correspondence, sir." Detective Wilson produced handcuffs. "Please turn around and place your hands behind your back." "This is crazy! I didn't steal any money!" Mark protested, even as he complied, too shocked to resist. "Daddy, what's happening?" Maya cried, rushing toward him. "Don't touch him, please," one of the officers said, stepping between them. Mark felt the cold metal close around his wrists as his world collapsed. "Girls, listen to me. This is a huge mistake. I didn't do anything wrong. I need you to be brave right now, okay?" "Why are they taking you?" Mia asked, tears streaming down her face. "Someone made a mistake." "I'll fix this and be home soon," Mark promised, though uncertainty churned in his stomach. Detective Wilson continued, "Your wife came to us yesterday with evidence from a company audit. The money was transferred in small amounts over the past 5 months. Jessica reported this?" Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing. "She was quite distraught when she discovered the theft," Wilson said. "She's at the station now giving her statement." As they led Mark toward the door, he looked back at his terrified daughters. "Call Grandma Eleanor. Tell her to come get you right away." "What about our school?" Maya called, always practical, even in crisis. "Tell her to call the school." Mark managed before being guided firmly into the police car. Through the window he watched his home grow smaller, his last glimpse of his daughters standing in the doorway, confusion and fear etched on their identical faces. How could Jessica believe he would steal from her? How would he prove his innocence? And most importantly, what would happen to his girls? At the station, Detective Wilson showed Mark the evidence: bank statements with his name, documents bearing what appeared to be his signature, emails discussing the transfers. None of it made sense. "Bail is set at $500,000, Wilson informed him. Mark closed his eyes in despair. There was no way he could afford that. Hours later, as Mark spent his first night in the cold county jail cell, miles away in their grandmother's apartment, Mia whispered to Maya, "Dad didn't do it, and I think I know who did." "What do you mean, Mia?" Maya turned to face her twin sister in the darkness of their grandmother's spare bedroom. "Who do you think did it?" Mia sat up in the unfamiliar bed they were sharing. "Jessica," she whispered. "Remember how she's always on her phone late at night? And how she kept asking Dad to sign papers?" Maya's eyes widened. "But she's married to Dad. Why would she want him to go to jail?" "I don't know yet," Mia admitted. "But I saw her moving Mom's pictures when Dad wasn't looking. And she never looks at us with real smiles." The twins fell silent as they heard their grandmother Eleanor's shuffling footsteps approaching. The door creaked open, revealing their grandmother's concerned face. "You girls should be asleep," Eleanor said gently. "You have school tomorrow." "Grandma, when can we see Dad?" Maya asked, her voice cracking. Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, her arthritic hands trembling slightly as she stroked Maya's hair. "Soon, sweetheart. Your father's lawyer is working very hard to help him." "Dad didn't steal any money," Mia insisted. "He would never do that." "I know, dear. I raised that boy, and there's not a dishonest bone in his body." Eleanor's voice was firm despite her fragile appearance. "Now try to sleep. Things will look better in the morning." After Eleanor left, both girls cried silently until they finally fell asleep, clutching each other's hands. The next morning was chaos. Eleanor's small apartment wasn't designed for children. The kitchen table doubled as their homework space. The bathroom had no step stool, and their clothes remained in suitcases since there was no dresser. "Your cereal is on the table, girls," Eleanor called, wincing as she tried to reach the bowls in the cabinet. Her arthritis made every movement painful. "Let me help, Grandma," Maya offered, climbing onto the counter to reach the dishes. "Thank you, sweetie. My hands aren't working too well today." At Oakville Elementary School, the twins quickly discovered that news of their father's arrest had spread. During recess, Billy Johnson, a freckled fourth grader, approached them at the swings. "My dad says your dad is a thief," he announced loudly. "He stole money from his new wife." Maya jumped off her swing. "That's a lie. My dad didn't steal anything." "Then why is he in jail?" Billy taunted. "Because someone tricked him." Maya shoved Billy hard enough to make him stumble backward. "Maya Thompson." Mrs. Reynolds, the recess monitor, rushed over. "We do not push other students." "He said my dad is a thief," Maya protested, tears filling her eyes. "Billy, that's enough," Mrs. Reynolds warned. "Maya, please come with me." While Maya went to the principal's office, Mia sat alone, watching everything around her. She noticed two teachers whispering and looking in her direction with pity. She pulled out her small notebook, the one her dad had given her for important observations, and wrote down everything she heard and saw. Meanwhile, at the county jail, Mark sat across from Sarah Jenkins, his court-appointed attorney. Her desk was covered with stacks of files, and dark circles under her eyes revealed her overwhelming caseload. "Mr. Thompson, the evidence they have is substantial," Sarah explained. "Bank transfers, documents with your signature, email exchanges. None of it is real," Mark insisted. "I never signed anything authorizing transfers from Jessica's company." Sarah studied the papers. "Some things don't add up. These signatures look off. And the timeline is strange. You started dating Jessica 6 months ago, but these transfers began 5 months ago, very soon after you met." "I don't understand any of this," Mark said, running his hands through his hair. "How could Jessica think I would steal from her? According to her statement, she discovered the missing funds during a routine audit. She claims you must have been planning this since before you married." Mark's face paled. "That's absurd. I married her because I thought she cared about me and the girls." "Speaking of your daughters, who has custody right now?" "My mother, Eleanor. She's 73 and has severe arthritis. I'm worried she can't handle the twins for long." Sarah made a note. "The bail is set at $500,000. Is there any way you can raise that amount?" Mark shook his head. "No, my savings went to Laura's medical bills. The house has equity, but I can't access that from in here. I'll see what I can do to get it reduced, but with the amount allegedly stolen..." Sarah let the sentence hang. That afternoon, Jessica made her first visit to Eleanor's apartment. She arrived in her luxury car, carrying shopping bags filled with new clothes for the twins. "Girls, I brought you some things from home," Jessica announced, her smile not reaching her eyes. "And some new outfits, too." Mia watched Jessica carefully while Maya asked the question burning in both their minds. "When is Dad coming home?" Jessica's expression shifted to practiced concern. "That's complicated, sweetie. Your father did something very wrong." "No, he didn't," Maya challenged. Jessica ignored her, turning to Eleanor instead. "I've spoken with my lawyer about the house. We may need to sell it to cover Mark's legal expenses." "Sell our house?" Maya exclaimed. "But that's our home. All our memories of Mom are there." "Sometimes we have to make hard choices," Jessica replied smoothly. "Once this awful business is over, we might all need a fresh start. I've been thinking about relocating to California." "California?" Eleanor's voice sharpened. "The girls' school, their friends, everything they know is here in Oakville." Jessica placed a hand on Eleanor's shoulder. "Eleanor, at your age and with your health condition, caring for 2 active children must be challenging. I'm considering filing for temporary guardianship. It's what Mark would want." "My son would want his children with family," Eleanor said firmly. After Jessica left, Eleanor tried to hide her tears from the twins as she struggled to prepare dinner with her painful hands. Later that night, Maya helped her grandmother into bed. "Grandma, are you okay?" Maya asked, noticing Eleanor's grimace as she sat down. "Just tired, dear. Don't worry about me." "Jessica wants to take us away," Mia said quietly from the doorway. "She wants to sell our house and move us to California." Eleanor's face hardened with determination. "That won't happen. Your father will be home soon, and everything will go back to normal." But as the twins returned to their shared bedroom, they weren't convinced. "She's planning something," Mia whispered. "I heard her on the phone in the kitchen. She said, 'Once he's convicted,' like she already knows Dad will be found guilty." "What can we do? We're just kids," Maya said, frustration clear in her voice. Mia thought for a moment. "Remember when Dad taught us to solve mysteries by gathering evidence? We need to watch Jessica and write down everything suspicious she does." "Like being detectives?" Maya's eyes lit up for the first time since their father's arrest. "Exactly. We need to find out what Jessica is really doing. But we'll need help. Who can we tell if we find something?" Mia frowned. "Not Grandma. She has too much to worry about already. Maybe Mrs. Rodriguez, the school counselor. She's always nice to us." "Deal." Maya stuck out her hand and the twins shook on their secret pact. Later that night, as they were falling asleep, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from Jessica. "Good news, girls. I've spoken to a real estate agent about the house. We can have it listed by next week. Sleep tight." The twins exchanged worried glances in the darkness. "We need to search her house," Mia said suddenly. "I think she's hiding something." "How would we even get in there?" Maya asked. "She keeps inviting us for weekend visits to maintain our connection. Next time she does, we accept. Then while she's busy, we look for evidence." "That's crazy," Maya whispered, but then nodded slowly. "But Dad would do the same for us." That night, the twins made a plan. They would become detectives, find evidence to clear their father, and stop Jessica before she could sell their home and take them away from everything they loved. 2 weeks passed with no progress in Mark's case. Each day, the twins added more observations to what they now called their detective notebook. They noted Jessica's visits always came with expensive gifts but few genuine smiles. They wrote down how she kept talking about California schools and selling their family home. "Did you see the text from Jessica?" Maya asked Mia as they walked home from school on Friday afternoon. She held out her phone. The message read, "Hello, girls. I miss you both so much. Would you like to stay at my downtown condo this weekend? We could go shopping and watch movies. Your grandmother could use a break. Let me know." XOXO. Mia nodded slowly. "This is our chance." "I'm nervous," Maya admitted. "What if we get caught?" "We won't. Remember what Dad taught us about being careful." Mia squeezed her sister's hand. "We need to do this for him." When they reached Eleanor's apartment, they found their grandmother on the phone, her face pinched with worry. "Yes, Sarah, I understand," Eleanor said to Mark's lawyer. "Please keep us updated." She hung up and turned to the twins. "That was your father's attorney. The prosecutor is refusing all plea deals, They want your dad to admit guilt. But he's innocent, Maya protested. Of course he is, dear. Eleanor sighed heavily. Sarah is doing her best, but the evidence looks very convincing. Mia showed her grandmother the text from Jessica. Can we go? It might be good for you to rest. Eleanor hesitated. I don't know, girls. I don't trust that woman. Please, Grandma, Maya added. We'll be careful. Eleanor finally agreed, unaware of their true intentions. The next morning, Jessica arrived in her shiny black car. She wore designer sunglasses and a bright smile that didn't warm her eyes. Girls, I'm so excited for our weekend together. She hugged them quickly. I brought you something. She handed them each a small box containing matching silver bracelets. For your California collection, she explained. I've been looking at the most wonderful private school in San Francisco. They even have a riding program. The twins exchanged glances as they climbed into her car. Jessica's downtown condo was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The furniture looked expensive but uncomfortable. There were no family photos, only abstract art on the walls. Your room is through here, Jessica said, leading them to a guest bedroom with twin beds. I bought some new clothes for you to try on. The shopping bags on the beds contained expensive outfits with San Francisco logos. Thank you, the twins said politely. Jessica clapped her hands together. Let's have some fun. Shopping first, then dinner at a fancy restaurant, then movies. The day passed in a blur of activities. Jessica bought them more clothes they didn't want and took photos of them for your father. At the restaurant, she ordered for them without asking what they liked. During the movie, she spent most of the time texting on her phone. That night, back at the condo, Jessica tucked them into bed. Tomorrow we can discuss your new school options, she said. Sleep tight. But Mia couldn't sleep. Around 11:30 at night, she heard Jessica on the phone in the living room. Carefully, she slipped out of bed and crept to the door, opening it just a crack. Everything's going according to plan. Jessica's voice was low but clear. His lawyer is useless, and once he's convicted, I'll have control of everything. The house, his savings, even his parents' inheritance that was meant for those brats. Mia's heart pounded. She memorized every word. The custody paperwork is ready, Jessica continued. With their father in prison and their grandmother too old and sick to care for them, no judge will refuse me. No, I'm not keeping them. Once I have legal control of their trust funds, they'll end up in foster care somewhere. Just like Arizona, but bigger. The insurance money alone is worth $300,000. Mia tiptoed back to bed and shook her sister awake. Maya, she whispered urgently. I heard Jessica on the phone. She's planning to steal everything, even money meant for us, and she's going to put us in foster care after she gets it. Maya sat up, fully alert. We need to find proof. We need to search her office, but we can't do it now. She's still awake. Tomorrow morning, Maya decided. She always takes long showers. That's when we'll look. The next morning, Jessica made them pancakes, talking non-stop about California. I've already contacted real estate agents about your house, she mentioned casually. We should be able to sell quickly. After breakfast, Jessica announced she was going to take a shower. Why don't you girls watch TV? I won't be long. The moment they heard the bathroom door close and the water start running, the twins rushed to Jessica's home office. The desk drawers are locked, Mia whispered, trying the handles. Maya pulled a hairpin from her pocket. Remember when Dad taught us how to open Grandma's cabinet when she lost the key? She worked the hairpin in the lock until they heard a click. The drawer slid open. Inside, they found a voice recorder and a thick notebook. Mia opened the notebook while Maya examined the recorder. Look at this, Mia gasped, flipping through pages of handwritten notes. She's been planning this for months. She targeted Dad on purpose after learning about Mom's life insurance and Grandpa's inheritance. Maya pressed a button on the recorder, and Jessica's voice filled the room. Mark Thompson is perfect. Widower, 2 kids, still grieving his wife. He has that inheritance coming from his parents, plus the life insurance from his wife's death. The house is nearly paid off, too. They quickly pressed stop, terrified Jessica might hear. "There's more," Mia whispered, turning pages in the notebook. She did this before in Arizona to someone named Robert Dalton, and before that in Nevada to a man called William Parker. "We need to copy this," Maya said, looking around the room. Mia spotted a USB drive on the desk. "We can use this." They quickly photographed pages from the notebook using Jessica's spare phone that was charging on the desk. Maya copied the audio files from the recorder onto the USB drive. "The water's stopping," Mia warned, hearing the shower turn off. They carefully returned everything exactly as they found it, closed and locked the drawer, but kept the USB drive and Jessica's spare phone. Meanwhile, in his jail cell, Mark was creating his own timeline of events since meeting Jessica. He wrote on the back of a letter from Sarah Jenkins, "Met Jessica at coffee shop. She spilled coffee on me. She asked about finances during our third date. She used my computer to check email while I made dinner. She asked me to sign documents for joint accounts. She wanted copies of my signature for insurance forms." The pattern was becoming clear to him now, but he had no way to prove anything from inside his cell. Back at the condo, the twins had just slipped back to the couch when Jessica emerged from the bathroom. "What are you girls watching?" she asked cheerfully. "Just cartoons," Maya said, trying to sound normal. After lunch, Jessica drove them back to Eleanor's apartment. "I'll see you next weekend," she said. "And I have exciting news. I've scheduled tours of 3 San Francisco schools for next month." Once inside, the twins ran to their room and hid the USB drive inside Mia's teddy bear, carefully stitching the small opening closed again. "What do we do now?" Maya asked. "Should we tell Grandma?" Mia shook her head. "Not yet. We need a better plan. Grandma might confront Jessica, and then Jessica would know we found something." "What about Mrs. Rodriguez at school? She might help us." "Maybe, but we need to be careful who we trust," Mia said, thinking hard. "Let's research similar cases first." That night, after Eleanor went to bed, the twins used her old computer to search for information about fraud cases and false accusations. They read about evidence requirements and who to contact with information about crimes. As they finally prepared for bed, Maya's phone buzzed with another text from Jessica. She showed it to Mia with shaking hands. "I've enrolled you both in a wonderful private school in San Francisco. We move right after your father's conviction next month." Maya and Mia stared at the text message in horror. 1 month until they'd be forced to move to California. 1 month to save their father. "We need to tell someone," Maya whispered. "Now." "But who?" Mia clutched the teddy bear containing their evidence. "If Jessica finds out, she'll take the phone and USB drive." Maya paced their small bedroom. "Dad's trial starts in 3 weeks. We don't have much time." The next morning at Oakville Elementary School, the twins sat through classes unable to focus. During lunch period, Billy Johnson approached their table again. "My dad says your dad is going to prison for a long time," he announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "He says criminals always have criminal kids too." Maya's face turned red. "Take that back." "Why should I? It's true. Your dad's a thief and—" Maya launched herself across the table, knocking Billy to the floor. "My dad is innocent!" she screamed, punching wildly. Teachers rushed to separate them. Minutes later, the twins sat outside the principal's office while Maya held an ice pack to her bruised knuckles. "Ms. Thompson," the secretary called. "Mrs. Rodriguez will see you now." The school counselor's office was small but comfortable, with colorful posters about feelings and kindness on the walls. Mrs. Rodriguez, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and dark hair pulled back in a bun, looked at the twins with concern. "Maya, this is the second fight in 2 weeks," she said gently. "Would you like to talk about what's happening?" Maya stared at the floor. "Billy said our dad is a criminal. He's not." "I understand you're defending your father," Mrs. Rodriguez said, "but fighting isn't the answer." Mia, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke. Mrs. Rodriguez, can we trust you? The counselor seemed surprised by the question. Of course. What's on your mind, Mia? The twins exchanged a look. Maya nodded slightly. We found something, Mia said carefully, about Jessica. Mrs. Rodriguez leaned forward. Your stepmother? She's trying to hurt our dad, Maya blurted out. She's the one who stole the money. We have proof. That's a very serious accusation, Mrs. Rodriguez said. What kind of proof? Mia hesitated, then pulled out Jessica's spare phone. We found this at her condo. And we have recordings too. She played a short audio clip of Jessica discussing her plans. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression changed from skepticism to alarm as she listened. We have more on this, Mia explained, showing the counselor a few photos they'd taken of Jessica's notebook. She's done this before to other men. Girls, this is very serious, Mrs. Rodriguez said. Have you shown this to your grandmother? No, Maya replied. We're afraid Jessica will find out. She visits Grandma's apartment all the time, and Grandma isn't feeling well lately. Mrs. Rodriguez thought for a moment. I need to contact the police about this. The detective in charge of your father's case should see this evidence. Detective Wilson? Maya asked. But he's the one who arrested our dad. If your evidence is real, he needs to know, Mrs. Rodriguez insisted. Police officers want the truth, even if it means they made a mistake. Meanwhile, at the county jail, Mark received an unexpected visitor. Jessica sat across from him in the visiting area, dressed in an expensive black suit. Mark, darling, you look terrible, she said, studying him through the glass partition. What are you doing here, Jessica? Mark asked coldly. She smiled. I'm trying to help you. The girls miss you so much. Then why are you selling our house? Why are you talking about moving them to California? Jessica's smile tightened. I've been completely transparent. We need money for your legal fees, and a fresh start afterward would be good for everyone. She pulled documents from her designer handbag. I need you to sign these. They're property transfer forms so I can manage the house sale. Mark studied the papers. You want me to sign over full ownership of the house to you? It's just easier this way with you in here, Jessica explained smoothly. For the girls' security. No, Mark said firmly. That house belongs to my daughters. It's their home and holds their memories of their mother. Jessica's pleasant expression faltered for a second. Don't be difficult, Mark. Think of the girls. I am thinking of them. That's why I'm not signing. Jessica's face hardened. You're making a mistake. Without money for a better lawyer, you'll be convicted. You could face 15 years. The girls will be grown by then. Get out, Mark said quietly, and stay away from my daughters. As Jessica stood to leave, her mask of perfection slipped completely. You'll regret this, she hissed, loud enough for a nearby guard to hear. Across town, Detective James Wilson sat at his desk reviewing case files. The Thompson case had seemed straightforward. Clear evidence of embezzlement, documents with signatures, bank transfers. But something had been bothering him since his conversation with Mrs. Rodriguez. He pulled out the financial records again. The money trail was sophisticated. Multiple transfers through shell companies before reaching the offshore account in Mark's name. It was too complex for someone with basic accounting knowledge. This isn't amateur work, he muttered to himself. His computer pinged with an email from the digital forensics team. The document timestamps didn't match their creation dates. They had been backdated, and the routing of the stolen funds matched patterns used by professional money launderers. Wilson's phone rang. Detective Wilson. James, it's Daniel from Financial Crimes. I ran that name you asked about, Jessica Winters. Before Oakville, she lived in Phoenix, Arizona under the name Jennifer Warren, and before that she was Janet Williams in Las Vegas. Wilson sat up straight. Any criminal record? Nothing that stuck, but there were allegations in both places. Men who claimed they were framed for financial crimes. The cases are eerily similar to Thompson's. "Send me everything you have," Wilson said, his unease growing. That evening, Jessica arrived at Eleanor's apartment with shopping bags and a bright smile. "Girls, look what I bought you for our California adventure." She pulled out expensive sneakers and designer jeans. The twins thanked her politely while exchanging nervous glances. "Eleanor, you look unwell," Jessica commented, noticing the older woman's pallor. "Just tired," Eleanor said, lowering herself carefully into a chair. Her arthritis had been worse lately, the pain keeping her awake at night. "This is exactly why we need to discuss the girl's situation," Jessica said. "You're in no condition to care for two energetic children. I've prepared temporary guardianship papers." "The girls belong with family," Eleanor insisted weakly. "With all due respect, you're 73 and in declining health," Jessica said, her voice hardening. "And their father is facing a long prison sentence. I'm their stepmother. Who else should care for them?" "Their father will be home soon," Eleanor countered. Jessica's eyes flashed with anger before she controlled her expression. "Eleanor, be realistic. The evidence against Mark is overwhelming." When Maya started to protest, Jessica turned to her with an unnervingly cold stare. "Maya, difficult children often get separated in foster care. It would be a shame if you and Mia ended up in different homes." The threat hung in the air, silencing both girls. After Jessica left, Eleanor had a coughing fit that lasted several minutes. The twins helped her to bed, both noticing how their grandmother's hands trembled. "Grandma, should we call a doctor?" Mia asked, concerned. "No, dear. Just need rest," Eleanor murmured, closing her eyes. Once Eleanor was asleep, Maya turned to her sister. "We need to check if Mrs. Rodriguez called Detective Wilson." Mia nodded, pulling out a notebook with a coded message they had prepared for their counselor. They would hide it in their homework tomorrow, a secret way to communicate without Jessica knowing. As they worked on their plan, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Good news! The realtor has 2 serious buyers for the house. Also, I've scheduled your placement tests for San Francisco Academy next week. Pack overnight bags. We're making a quick trip to see the campus. P.S. Don't mention this to your grandmother. She's not well enough for the stress." The twins looked at each other in panic. Jessica was moving faster than they had expected. Their father's trial was still 3 weeks away, but Jessica already had buyers for their home and was planning to take them to California. Their time was running out. "We can't go to California," Maya whispered urgently to her sister. "We need to tell Mrs. Rodriguez everything tomorrow." "But what if Jessica forces us to go before then?" Mia asked, clutching her teddy bear that held their evidence. The next morning, the twins hurried to school early, hoping to catch Mrs. Rodriguez before classes started. They found her in her office, already on the phone. "Yes, Detective Wilson," she was saying. "I understand your concerns, but these girls have some compelling evidence." She noticed the twins in the doorway and motioned them in. "In fact, they've just arrived. I'll call you back." "Did you tell Detective Wilson about Jessica?" Mia asked immediately. Mrs. Rodriguez nodded. "I did, but he's cautious. He wants more proof before he can officially reopen the investigation." "We have more," Maya said, pulling Jessica's spare phone from her backpack. "Much more." While the twins showed Mrs. Rodriguez everything they had collected, Detective James Wilson sat at his desk across town, staring at 3 different driver's license photos on his computer screen. Same woman, different names, different states: Jessica Winters of Illinois, Jennifer Warren of Arizona, Janet Williams of Nevada. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "This is Detective Wilson from Oakville PD. I need everything you have on a Robert Dalton case from Phoenix 3 years ago." The information arrived within the hour. Wilson spread the files across his desk, noting the similarities. A widower with children, a whirlwind romance, a sudden marriage, embezzlement charges, and the same woman at the center of it all. In each case, the man went to prison, assets were liquidated, and the woman disappeared, only to resurface in another state with a new identity. "I've been played," Wilson muttered, reaching for his phone again. Meanwhile, Jessica paced her downtown condo, growing increasingly frantic. She'd been searching everywhere for her spare phone since yesterday. "It has to be here," she hissed, tearing apart couch cushions. The phone contained backup copies of her planning documents and recordings. Dangerous evidence if found. A sudden thought made her freeze. The twins had visited last weekend. Could they have found something? Taken the phone? Jessica grabbed her purse and car keys. She needed to get those girls to California immediately. Once across state lines, she could complete her plan and disappear before anyone connected the dots. At Eleanor's apartment, the twins returned from school to find their grandmother napping in her chair. Her breathing labored. They were quietly doing homework when furious knocking startled them. "Eleanor! Girls! Open up!" Jessica's voice was higher-pitched than normal. Maya opened the door cautiously. Jessica burst in, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. "Pack your bags right now," she ordered. "We're leaving for California today." "Today?" Maya said. "But we have school tomorrow." "There's a family emergency," Jessica said, her smile stiff and unnatural. "My mother is very ill. We need to fly out immediately." "The girls have school," Eleanor said, awakened by the commotion. "They can't just leave." "This is non-negotiable," Jessica snapped. "As their stepmother, I have the right to travel with them." "You have no legal guardianship," Eleanor challenged, struggling to stand up. "Mark has custody, and in his absence, I am their caretaker." Jessica's carefully maintained facade began to crack. "Listen to me, you stubborn old woman. Those girls are coming with me today." "No, they're not," Eleanor said firmly. Jessica stepped closer to Eleanor, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You are in no position to stop me. One call to social services about your deteriorating health, and these children will be placed in state care." "You wouldn't dare!" Eleanor gasped. "Try me!" Jessica turned to the twins. "Girls, get your things! Now!" "We're not going," Maya said, standing beside her grandmother. Jessica lunged forward and grabbed Maya's arm. "You little brat! You've been nothing but trouble since the day I married your father." "Let go of her!" Mia shouted, shocking everyone with her unusual outburst. Next door, Mrs. Chen, a retired teacher who had been Eleanor's neighbor for 20 years, heard the commotion. She pressed her ear against the shared wall, then picked up her phone to call 911. "There's some kind of fight at Eleanor Thompson's apartment," she reported. "A woman is yelling at her and her grandchildren. I think they might be in danger." Officer Luis Ramirez arrived 8 minutes later. He knocked on the door, which was opened by a visibly shaken Mia. "Hello there," Officer Ramirez said gently. "We received a call about a disturbance. Is everything okay?" Jessica immediately composed herself, smoothing her hair and producing a brilliant smile. "Officer, thank you for coming. Just a family disagreement. I'm trying to take my stepdaughters to visit my sick mother, but their grandmother is being difficult." Officer Ramirez studied Jessica carefully. He recognized her from case briefings about Mark Thompson's fraud charges. "Ma'am, may I see some identification?" "Is that really necessary?" Jessica asked, her smile faltering slightly. "Standard procedure," Officer Ramirez replied. While Jessica dug through her purse, Mia discreetly showed Officer Ramirez her phone screen, where she had typed, "Help. She wants to kidnap us." "Mrs. Winters, would you mind waiting here while I call in?" Officer Ramirez asked, stepping outside to radio dispatch. "I need to check on a Jessica Winters," he said quietly into his radio. "Possible flight risk in the Thompson embezzlement case." "Stand by," the dispatcher responded. "Detective Wilson issued an alert on that name this morning. He wants to be notified immediately of any contact." When Officer Ramirez returned, Jessica was gathering her things. "I just remembered an important meeting," she said brightly. "I'll come back for the girls later." "I'm afraid I need you to stay until my supervisor arrives." Officer Ramirez said firmly. "Won't take long." Jessica's eyes darted toward the door. "This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything wrong." 15 minutes later, Detective Wilson arrived. When Jessica saw him, something changed in her expression. A flash of recognition, then calculation. "Detective Wilson," she greeted him warmly. "Have you made any progress on finding who set up my husband?" "That's exactly what I want to discuss with you, Mrs. Winters," Wilson replied. "Or would you prefer Warren? Or perhaps Williams?" Jessica's smile vanished. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do," Wilson said. "We should continue this conversation at the station." "Am I under arrest?" Jessica demanded. "No, just some questions about your previous residences in Arizona and Nevada." Jessica's hand tightened on her purse. In a sudden movement, she shoved past Officer Ramirez and ran for the door. She made it to the hallway before Wilson caught her arm. "Now you're under arrest," he said, "for assaulting an officer." 2 hours later, Jessica sat in an interrogation room while her lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Richard Brennan, demanded her release. "My client has no criminal record," he argued to the judge during an emergency hearing. "She's a respected business owner and no flight risk." Despite Detective Wilson's objections, the judge granted Jessica release on her own recognizance. "But you are not to contact the Thompson children or leave the state," the judge warned. The moment she left the courthouse, Jessica drove to her bank and withdrew the maximum daily limit in cash. She then called her assistant. "Cancel all my meetings for the next week," she instructed. "Family emergency." In a secure room at the police station, the twins finally shared all their evidence with Detective Wilson. The voice recordings, the notebook photographs, the detailed plans. "You two are the bravest kids I've ever met," Wilson told them after listening to Jessica's recorded conversations. "This evidence changes everything." "Will our dad come home now?" Maya asked hopefully. "We still have legal procedures to follow," Wilson explained. "But I'm going to visit him right now to tell him what we've found." At the county jail, Mark sat across from Detective Wilson, separated by a glass partition. "I made a mistake, Mr. Thompson," Wilson began. "I believed evidence that I should have questioned more thoroughly." "What changed?" Mark asked, hardly daring to hope. "Your daughters," Wilson replied. "They found evidence that Jessica has done this before. She targeted you, created false documents, and set you up to take the fall while she walked away with everything." Mark's eyes filled with tears. "My girls did that?" Wilson nodded. "They're extraordinary. But Jessica knows we're on to her now, and she's dangerous. We've moved your mother and the twins to a safe location until we can arrest Jessica with enough evidence to hold her." "What happens now?" Mark asked. "Your lawyer is filing motions to dismiss the charges," Wilson explained, "but Jessica has powerful friends, and legal proceedings take time. I can't promise immediate results." "But you believe me now," Mark said. "That's something." After Wilson left, Mark sat on his bunk, overwhelmed with pride for his daughters and fear for their safety. Across town, Jessica packed a suitcase with cash and a passport under yet another name, Elizabeth Wright. She booked a flight to a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. As night fell over Oakville, Detective Wilson stationed plainclothes officers outside Jessica's condo and at all transportation hubs. The prosecutor, Vincent Daniels, reviewed the new evidence with growing alarm as he realized he might have been pursuing the wrong person all along. The twins and Eleanor settled into a hotel room under police protection, the weight of their secret investigation finally shared. For the first time in weeks, they felt a glimmer of hope that their father might come home. Morning sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains as Maya and Mia awoke after their first night in protective custody. Eleanor was still asleep in the adjacent bed, her breathing less labored after a night of proper rest. A gentle knock at the door made both girls sit up. Detective Wilson entered with a tray of breakfast and a cautious smile. "Good morning," he said quietly. "I thought you might be hungry." "Is our dad coming home today?" Maya asked immediately. Wilson set the tray down. "We're working on it. Your father's trial is in 3 days, and we need to prepare everything carefully." "But you know he's innocent now," Mia pointed out. "I do," Wilson agreed, "but the court needs proper evidence presented in the right way. That's why I'm meeting with your father's lawyer today." Across town at the Oakville courthouse, Sarah Jenkins spread her case files across a conference table. Dark circles under her eyes revealed she had worked through the night. "The timestamps don't match," she explained to Detective Wilson when he arrived. "According to our digital forensics team, these documents were created 2 weeks after their supposed signing dates." Wilson nodded. "And we've confirmed the documents were created on Jessica's personal laptop. Her fingerprints are all over this case." "But will it be enough?" Sarah worried. "Judge Harrison is known for following procedures exactly. He might still want the trial to proceed." "That's why we need more," Wilson said. "I'm trying to track down Jessica's accomplice. There's a man named Robert Keller who helped her with the technical aspects. My sources say he's still in town." Meanwhile, in a dimly lit booth at a truck stop outside Oakville, Jessica sat across from a nervous-looking man with thinning hair and glasses. "You said you destroyed everything," she hissed, keeping her voice low. Robert Keller fidgeted with his coffee cup. "I did, Jess. But they've got the twins' evidence now. They know about Arizona and Nevada." "Those little brats," Jessica muttered. "I should have gotten rid of them sooner." Robert's eyes widened. "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing," Jessica snapped. "Focus on the problem. I need a new identity. The Elizabeth Wright passport might be compromised. I don't know if I can—" "You will," Jessica cut him off, "unless you want to explain to the police how you helped me frame those other men." Robert swallowed hard. "It'll take time." "You have 24 hours, Jessica said, standing to leave. "Meet me tomorrow at the storage facility on Route 7. Bring everything I'll need." Unknown to Jessica, a plainclothes officer sat 2 booths away, photographing their meeting with a hidden camera. Back at the county jail, Mark Thompson received unexpected news from a guard. "You have visitors, Thompson. Special arrangement." Mark was led to a private visiting room instead of the usual area with glass partitions. When the door opened, Maya and Mia rushed in. "Dad!" they cried in unison, throwing themselves into his arms. Mark held them tightly, tears streaming down his face. "My brave girls, Detective Wilson told me what you did." "We knew you were innocent," Maya said fiercely. "We found Jessica's notebook and recordings," Mia added. "She planned everything." Mark pulled back to look at them, amazement in his eyes. "You two figured this out when all the adults were fooled. I'm so proud of you. Even though we broke into Jessica's desk?" Maya asked. "Sometimes rules have to bend when justice is at stake," Mark said. "But how did you know to look for evidence?" "Mia noticed things," Maya explained. "She saw how Jessica acted when no one was watching. And Maya was brave enough to use the hairpin to open the drawer," Mia added. "The one you taught us to use when Grandma lost her key." Mark shook his head in wonder. "I never thought that lesson would help catch a criminal." Sarah Jenkins entered the room, nodding respectfully to the twins. "I need to update you all. I filed an emergency motion to dismiss all charges based on the new evidence." "Will it work?" Mark asked. Sarah's expression was serious. "Judge Harrison denied it. He says since the trial is already scheduled, all evidence should be presented there. But he's allowing us to introduce the new findings." Mark's shoulders slumped. "So I have to wait for trial?" "Yes, but we're in a much stronger position now," Sarah assured him. "The prosecutor knows their case is falling apart." As if on cue, a tall man in an expensive suit appeared at the door. "Speaking of the prosecutor," Sarah muttered. "Mr. Thompson," Vincent Daniels said smoothly, "I'd like a word." The twins moved protectively closer to their father. "Anything you have to say can be said in front of my daughters and my attorney," Mark replied. Daniels cleared his throat. "Very well. In light of certain Inconsistencies in the evidence. The state is prepared to offer a deal. Plead guilty to a lesser charge of financial mismanagement, serve 5 years instead of 15, and will ensure your daughters remain with family rather than becoming wards of the state. That's a threat, Sarah said sharply. That's a consideration, Daniels corrected. Mrs. Winters has considerable influence in this community. She's already filed for emergency guardianship of the children. Mark's face hardened. After everything that's come to light, you're still pursuing this case? You know I'm innocent. What I know is that I have documented evidence and a witness, Daniels replied. Your attorney has theories and the testimony of children who obviously want to help their father. Those theories include forensic proof that the documents were created on Jessica's laptop, Sarah countered, and the testimony comes from children who discovered a detailed plan to frame their father. The judge will determine what's admissible, Daniels said dismissively. Consider the deal, Thompson. 5 years goes by quickly, 15 doesn't. After Daniels left, Mark turned to Sarah. I won't plead guilty to something I didn't do. Not even for 5 minutes, let alone 5 years. I was hoping you'd say that, Sarah replied with a smile, because I just received a call from Detective Wilson. They found Robert Keller, Jessica's technical accomplice. He's willing to testify against her in exchange for immunity. Meanwhile, in her condo, Jessica frantically packed essentials into a small suitcase. She knew she was being watched but had identified a potential escape route through the service entrance. As she gathered cash and jewelry, her phone rang. What? She snapped. Jessica, it's Richard Brennan. Her lawyer's voice was tense. The police just picked up Robert Keller. He's talking. Jessica froze. What exactly is he saying? Everything, apparently. How you targeted Thompson after researching his financial status. How you planted evidence. How you've done this before. They're building a case against you, not Thompson. Can you stop it? I can delay it, create reasonable doubt. But with Keller's testimony... Brennan paused. Jessica, if you're planning to leave town, do it now. Jessica hung up and doubled her packing speed. Across town at the police station, Detective Wilson supervised Robert Keller's formal statement. The nervous man detailed how he had met Jessica 3 years ago during her Jennifer Warren phase in Arizona. She promised me a cut if I helped with the technical stuff, Robert explained. Creating backdated documents, setting up the offshore accounts, planting digital evidence. She's scary smart about finding vulnerable targets. And Mark Thompson was one of these targets? Wilson asked. Robert nodded. She researched dozens of men before choosing him. Widower with kids, life insurance money, inheritance coming, house nearly paid off. Perfect mark. Did she plan to keep the children? God, no, Robert said. She hated those kids from day one, called them obstacles. Once she had control of Thompson's assets, she planned to dump them in foster care somewhere far away. At the safe house, Wilson shared these developments with Eleanor and the twins. Robert's testimony changes everything, he explained. We now have a witness who can confirm Jessica's pattern of behavior and her specific actions against your father. So Dad can come home? Maya asked hopefully. We're working on it, Wilson said. Sarah Jenkins is meeting with Judge Harrison right now to request immediate release based on the new evidence. What about Jessica? Mia asked quietly. Is she going to jail? We're preparing to arrest her, Wilson assured them. Officers are monitoring her condo and all transportation hubs. What Wilson didn't know was that Jessica had already slipped past the surveillance. Dressed as a cleaning woman, she had walked right out the service entrance of her building. Now she was driving a rental car toward the storage facility where she planned to meet Robert the next day, unaware he was already in police custody. As evening fell, Sarah Jenkins returned to the jail with news for Mark. Judge Harrison still insists the trial must proceed as scheduled, she reported, but he's allowed us to present all the new evidence, including Robert Keller's testimony. What about Jessica? Mark asked. Sarah's expression was grim. She's disappeared. Police lost track of her about 3 hours ago. The girls, Mark began anxiously, are safe, Sarah assured him. Extra officers have been assigned to the safe house. No one can get to them. Mark nodded, though worry lined his face. What happens now? We prepare for trial, Sarah said firmly. With Robert's testimony and the forensic evidence plus the recordings your daughters found, we have a strong case. Vincent Daniels knows it too. That's why he offered the deal. I won't confess to crimes I didn't commit, Mark said, determination replacing his worry. We'll face this in court and let the truth come out. That's exactly what we'll do, Sarah agreed. And with your daughter's evidence, Robert's testimony, and the forensic proof, the truth is finally on our side. The morning of the trial arrived with gray skies and steady rain. Mark Thompson stood in his cell, dressed in the suit Sarah had brought him rather than prison clothes. This small victory, appearing in court as a man presumed innocent rather than as a prisoner, felt significant after months in custody. Ready? Asked a guard, opening the cell door. As I'll ever be, Mark replied. Across town at the Oakville courthouse, Sarah Jenkins arrived early, carrying boxes of evidence files. The normally calm attorney looked tired but determined as Detective Wilson helped her unload her car. Any sign of Jessica? Sarah asked quietly. Wilson shook his head. Nothing yet. We have officers at the bus station, train station, airport, everywhere she might try to leave from. She won't miss this, Sarah said. Her whole plan falls apart if she's not here to play the victim. Inside the courthouse, they set up at the defense table. Sarah arranged her files in precise order while Wilson checked his phone for updates. Robert Keller is ready to testify, he confirmed. He's nervous, but the promise of immunity is keeping him cooperative. Sarah nodded. The forensics report on Jessica's laptop came in at midnight. The documents were definitely created there, and the metadata proves they were backdated. In a small room down the hall, Dr. Patricia Morgan, a child psychologist, sat with Maya and Mia. The twins wore matching blue dresses that Eleanor had carefully ironed the night before. Remember, Dr. Morgan explained gently, the judge might ask you questions. Just answer honestly, exactly what you saw and heard. What if Jessica tries to scare us? Maya asked, fidgeting with her dress collar. She won't be allowed to approach you, Dr. Morgan assured her, and Detective Wilson will be in the courtroom the entire time. Mia, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. What if no one believes us because we're just kids? Dr. Morgan smiled kindly. That's why we have the recordings and pictures you took. Evidence doesn't care how old you are. Eleanor entered, leaning on a cane. Her arthritis was particularly painful today, but nothing would keep her from supporting her family. Girls, you look beautiful, she said, hugging each twin. Your mother would be so proud of your courage. In another part of the courthouse, Vincent Daniels reviewed his prosecution files with growing unease. The case that had seemed so solid was now full of holes. The new evidence from the twins and Robert Keller's testimony directly contradicted his narrative of Mark Thompson as a calculating thief. His assistant, a young lawyer named Lisa Chen, knocked on his open door. Mr. Daniels? Jessica Winters just arrived. She's in the witness room. How does she seem? Daniels asked. Confident, perfectly dressed, not like someone whose scheme is falling apart. Daniels frowned. Stay with her. Don't let her talk to anyone else. When Lisa left, Daniels stared at the case files. His boss, the district attorney, had pressured him to proceed, despite the new evidence. A withdrawal now would make the office look incompetent, he'd insisted. But prosecuting an innocent man would be worse than embarrassment. Meanwhile, Sarah visited Mark in the courthouse holding room for a final preparation session. Jessica just arrived, she informed him. Looking like the grieving wife, of course. What's our strategy? Mark asked. We let them present their case first, Sarah explained. I'll cross-examine Jessica thoroughly, highlighting all the inconsistencies. Then we bring in our witnesses. the digital forensics expert, Robert Keller, and finally, the twins. Are the girls really ready for this? Mark worried. They've been practicing with Dr. Morgan. They're stronger than you think. Sarah spread out photographs of Mark and Jessica together. Let's go through the timeline once more. When exactly did she first access your computer? Mark pointed to a photo from their third date. This night. I made dinner, and she asked to check her email while I cooked. She was alone with my laptop for at least 20 minutes. And the signature samples? 2 weeks later. She said her company was adding me to her insurance policy and needed signature samples for verification. They continued reviewing every detail, strengthening their defense against whatever Jessica might claim on the stand. In the witness waiting room, Jessica sat perfectly composed in an expensive but conservative black dress. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a modest style, and her makeup was subtle enough to allow for convincing tears when needed. Lisa Chen watched her curiously. "Mrs. Winters, can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "No, thank you," Jessica replied with a sad smile. "I just want this to be over. To finally have justice." Lisa nodded sympathetically, though her suspicions had grown with each new piece of evidence. "It must be difficult, testifying against your husband. Ex-husband soon," Jessica corrected. "And yes, it's heartbreaking. I truly loved Mark. I never imagined he would betray me like this." Jessica checked her watch discreetly. The trial would begin in 1 hour. Her escape plan was set for immediately afterward. The new passport and cash were in her car, parked just 2 blocks away. A private plane waited at a small airfield 30 miles outside of Oakville, ready to take her to Mexico. From there, she would disappear permanently. Back in the main courtroom, spectators began filling the seats. Local reporters claimed the front row, eager to cover the sensational case of the widower accountant accused of stealing from his new wife. Detective Wilson positioned plainclothes officers strategically throughout the courthouse. He still didn't trust Jessica's calm appearance, suspecting she had an escape plan ready. Eleanor and the twins were escorted to special seats near the front. As they settled in, Maya suddenly grabbed Mia's arm. "Look," she whispered, pointing discreetly. "That's the man from Jessica's photos." Mia followed her gaze to a well-dressed older man sitting in the back row. "Who is he?" "I don't know, but his picture was in Jessica's notebook, in the section about her next targets." Eleanor overheard them. "Which man, dears?" "The one with white hair and the blue tie," Maya whispered. "He's in Jessica's notebook." Eleanor nodded subtly. "I'll tell Detective Wilson." She waved the detective over and quietly relayed the twins' observation. Wilson studied the man without being obvious. "Thank you," he murmured to the girls. "You've got good eyes." Wilson sent a text to an officer outside the courtroom, requesting an identification check on the mystery man. At exactly 10 o'clock, the bailiff called the court to order. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Richard Harrison." Everyone stood as the judge entered. Mark was brought in from the side door looking tired but resolute. When he saw his daughters, his expression softened, and he gave them a small, encouraging smile. Judge Harrison, a serious man in his 60s with a reputation for strict adherence to procedure, addressed the court. "Be seated. We're here in the case of State versus Mark Thompson on charges of embezzlement and fraud." He turned to both attorneys. "I understand there have been significant developments in this case. Ms. Jenkins, do you wish to make a statement before we begin?" Sarah stood. "Yes, Your Honor. The defense has obtained substantial new evidence showing Mr. Thompson was framed by Jessica Winters, who has a history of similar schemes in other states. We have a witness, Robert Keller, who will testify to helping Mrs. Winters fabricate the evidence against my client." The judge turned to Daniels. "Mr. Daniels, your response?" Vincent Daniels stood slowly. He had made his decision during the night, regardless of what his superiors wanted. "Your Honor, in light of the new evidence that has been brought to the state's attention, he He paused, glancing at Mark Thompson, then at the eager reporters, and finally at the twins who watched him with hopeful eyes. "I move to dismiss all charges against Mark Thompson." A shocked murmur swept through the courtroom. "Order!" Judge Harrison demanded, banging his gavel. "Mr. Daniels, are you certain? This is quite unusual at this stage." "I am certain, Your Honor. The state no longer believes we can prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. In fact, compelling evidence suggests Mr. Thompson is the victim in this case." Before the judge could respond, a commotion erupted near the back of the courtroom. Jessica had entered and heard Daniel's statement. Her carefully composed mask slipped completely, revealing rage beneath. "You can't do this!" she shouted. "He stole from me! I have proof!" "Mrs. Winters, be seated, or you will be removed," Judge Harrison ordered. Jessica's wild gaze swept the courtroom until she spotted the twins. Something in her expression made Detective Wilson move protectively toward the girls. "Those brats," Jessica hissed, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "They ruined everything." Judge Harrison banged his gavel again. "Mrs. Winters, this is your final warning." Jessica seemed to realize she had lost control. With visible effort, she composed herself and sat down, though her eyes continued to dart toward the exits. The judge studied the courtroom for a moment, then addressed Mark directly. "Mr. Thompson, in light of the prosecutor's motion and the apparent misconduct in this case, all charges against you are dismissed. You are free to go." The bailiff approached Mark and removed his handcuffs. For a moment, he stood still, unable to believe it was finally over. Then, with tears in his eyes, he turned toward his daughters. Maya and Mia didn't wait for permission. They ran to their father, pushing past the gate that separated the gallery from the court floor. Mark knelt down and gathered them into his arms as photographers captured the emotional reunion. Meanwhile, in the commotion, no one noticed Jessica slipping quietly out a side door, her plans for a dramatic courtroom performance forgotten in the urgent need to escape before she could be arrested. As the Thompson family embraced in the middle of the courtroom, Detective Wilson noticed the side door closing. He immediately spoke into his radio. "All units. Jessica Winters is fleeing the courthouse. East exit. Apprehend immediately." While police officers rushed to find Jessica, Mark held his daughters tightly, still unable to believe he was free. "You saved me," he whispered to them, his voice breaking. "You were so brave." Eleanor joined them, tears streaming down her face. "Let's go home, son." Detective Wilson approached the reunited family. "Mr. Thompson, we should get you out of here. There are reporters everywhere." Outside the courthouse, a crowd of journalists waited with cameras and microphones. When Mark appeared with his arms around the twins, they surged forward. "Mr. Thompson, how does it feel to be free? What will you do about Jessica Winters? Did you suspect your wife was framing you?" Detective Wilson and two officers created a protective barrier around the family. "No questions right now," Wilson announced firmly. "Mr. Thompson has been through enough." They escorted the family to a waiting police car that would take them home. As they drove away from the courthouse, Maya looked out the back window. "What will happen to Jessica?" she asked. "We'll find her," Detective Wilson assured them from the front seat. "She won't get far." Across town, Jessica had reached her car and was driving toward the small airfield where her escape plane waited. Her phone rang. Her lawyer, Richard Brennan. "What happened?" she demanded, answering on speakerphone while she drove. Daniels was supposed to push for conviction no matter what. "Jessica, listen to me." Brennan's voice was urgent. "They're looking for you. There's a warrant for your arrest. Fraud, perjury, evidence tampering, attempted kidnapping, and conspiracy. They know everything." "I'm already gone," Jessica said coldly. "Good luck collecting your final payment." She tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pressed harder on the accelerator. 20 more minutes to the airfield, then she would disappear forever. Meanwhile, the police car pulled into the driveway of the Thompson home. Mark stared at the house he hadn't seen in months. "It feels like years since I was here," he said quietly. Inside, Mark immediately noticed changes. The furniture had been rearranged. Several of Laura's photos were missing from the walls, replaced by modern art that Jessica had chosen. In the living room, boxes labeled "Donation" contained more family photos and Laura's books. "She was removing Mom," Mia said softly, opening one of the boxes. "She was making it like Mom never existed." Mark knelt beside the box and gently lifted out a framed photo of Laura holding the twins as babies. "We'll put everything back where it belongs." For the next hour, the family worked together, restoring Laura's presence in the home. They returned her photos to the walls, put her books back on the shelves, and placed her special items around the house just as they had been before. While Eleanor prepared a simple lunch, Mark sat with the twins at the kitchen table. "Now, I want to hear everything. How did you figure out what Jessica was doing?" The twins took turns explaining their investigation, how they'd noticed Jessica's fake smiles and secret phone calls, how they searched her office during her shower, and how they discovered her notebook and recordings. Mark listened in amazement. "I can't believe you did all that. Weren't you scared?" "Yes," Mia admitted. "But we were more scared of losing you in our house." "And going to California," Maya added with a shudder. Mark hugged them both. "You're the bravest people I've ever known. You saved me when all the grown-ups failed." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Mark opened it to find Sarah Jenkins and Detective Wilson. "We have updates," Sarah said as they entered. "Good and bad news." "What's the good news?" Mark asked. "Judge Harrison has officially dismissed all charges with prejudice, meaning they can't be filed again," Sarah explained. "And your former employer called me. They want to offer you your job back with a promotion and back pay for all the time you were away." Mark let out a relieved breath. "That's wonderful. What's the bad news?" Detective Wilson's expression turned serious. "Jessica escaped. She had a car waiting and reached a private airfield before our officers could catch up. A plane registered to a shell company took off heading south toward Mexico." "She's gone?" Maya asked, her voice small and frightened. "For now," Wilson acknowledged, "but we've alerted authorities in Mexico and frozen all her known accounts. It's just a matter of time before she's caught." Mark sat down heavily. "Will she come back? Try to hurt us again?" "I don't think so," Wilson said. "She knows we have overwhelming evidence against her. Coming anywhere near you would guarantee her capture." The phone rang and Eleanor answered it. "Thompson Residence." She listened for a moment, then held the phone out to Mark. "It's Thomas Palmer from your office." Mark took the call. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a smile. "They want me back at work next Monday with a raise and my own team." Throughout the afternoon, neighbors began stopping by. Some brought food, others simply offered apologies for believing the worst about Mark. Mrs. Chen from next door brought homemade cookies. "I never thought you did it," she told Mark firmly. "A man who puts his children first like you do couldn't be a criminal." By evening, the kitchen counter was filled with casseroles and desserts from neighbors trying to make amends. "People can be very quick to judge," Eleanor observed as she helped put away the food, "and very slow to apologize." After dinner, Detective Wilson returned with more news. "Robert Keller has provided details about Jessica's previous schemes," he explained. "She did this twice before in Arizona and Nevada. Those cases are being reopened, and her victims may be released from prison." "How many men did she frame?" Mark asked, horrified. "At least 2 that we know of," Wilson replied, "both widowers with children and assets. It was her pattern." "What about our house?" Maya asked suddenly. "Jessica said she was selling it." "She started the process," Wilson confirmed. "But she didn't have legal authority without your father's signature. The real estate listing has been canceled." Later that night, after the twins went to bed, Mark sat in the kitchen with Eleanor and Sarah Jenkins. "What happens now?" he asked. "Legally, I mean." "Jessica will be charged in absentia," Sarah explained. "When she's caught, and she will be caught, she'll face trial. With the evidence we have, she'll likely get 15 to 20 years. And the divorce? Mark asked. Already filed, Sarah assured him. Under the circumstances, it should be straightforward. What about the money she stole from her company? Eleanor asked. Will they come after Mark for it? No, Sarah said firmly. We've proven Mark had nothing to do with the embezzlement. In fact, the preliminary investigation suggests Jessica was stealing from her own company for years, using various schemes. There might not have been any actual money missing this time. She may have invented the theft just to frame Mark. Mark shook his head in disbelief. How did I not see who she really was? She fooled everyone, Sarah reminded him. She was very good at what she did. That night, Mark checked on the twins before going to bed himself. They were both asleep in Maya's room, unwilling to be separated even for a night. As he tucked the blanket around them, Mia stirred. Dad, I'm here, sweetheart. Is Jessica really gone forever? She asked sleepily. Yes, Mark promised, though he wasn't entirely sure. You're safe now. We all are. He gently touched the photo of Laura on Maya's nightstand. Your mom would be so proud of you both. In his own bedroom, Mark found more evidence of Jessica's plans. Laura's jewelry box had been emptied, the precious items Jessica had planned to sell hidden in a locked case in the closet. One by one, Mark returned each piece to the box where it belonged. As he finally lay down in his own bed for the first time in months, exhaustion overtook him. Despite the lingering questions about Jessica's whereabouts and the long road of healing ahead, Mark Thompson fell asleep feeling something he hadn't felt since his arrest. Hope. Mark awoke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window. For a moment, he felt disoriented. The comfort of his own bed seemed strange after months on a thin jail mattress. Then the memories of yesterday flooded back, the dismissed charges, his freedom, holding his daughters again. He padded downstairs to find the twins already awake, watching cartoons in their pajamas. The normality of the scene made his throat tight with emotion. Morning, Dad, Maya called, noticing him first. Good morning, he replied. How long have you been up? Since 7, Mia said. We wanted to make sure yesterday was real. Mark sat between them on the couch, putting an arm around each girl. It was real. I'm home for good. Eleanor appeared from the kitchen with a steaming mug of coffee. There you are. Breakfast is almost ready. After months of jail food, Eleanor's pancakes tasted like heaven. As they ate, Mark noticed the twins exchanging glances. What's on your minds? He asked. Is it okay if we don't go to school today? Maya asked. We want to stay with you. Of course, Mark said. I already called your school yesterday. They understand you need a few days. The peaceful breakfast was interrupted by a knock at the door. When Mark opened it, he found himself facing a wall of reporters and cameras. Mr. Thompson, how does it feel to be exonerated? What are your plans now that you're free? Do you blame the justice system for what happened to you? Detective Wilson appeared, pushing through the crowd. That's enough. This family deserves privacy. He helped Mark close the door against the persistent journalists. Sorry about that. News travels fast in Oakville. How long will they be out there? Mark asked. A day or two, then they'll find a news story, Wilson assured him. I've assigned an officer to keep them off your property. Eleanor brought coffee for the detective, who accepted gratefully. Any news about Jessica? Mark asked quietly, making sure the twins couldn't hear from the kitchen. Mexican authorities found the plane at a small airfield near Cancun, Wilson reported, but she was already gone. We believe she had another identity and transportation waiting. Mark sighed. Will she ever be caught? We'll find her, Wilson said with conviction. People like Jessica make mistakes eventually. Her assets are frozen, her network is exposed, and her face is being circulated internationally. While the adults talked, Maya and Mia explored the house, discovering more changes Jessica had made in their absence. Look at this, Maya called from their father's home office. She took Dad's files. Mark and Detective Wilson joined them. The filing cabinet where Mark kept important documents stood open and half empty. "She was looking for financial information," Wilson observed. "Anything she could use to access your accounts." "The safe," Mark suddenly remembered. He moved a painting on the wall, revealing a small wall safe. If she found this? He entered the combination, holding his breath. When the door swung open, he exhaled in relief. She didn't get in. Laura's will, the house deed, the girls' birth certificates, they're all still here. "She was probably planning to work on the safe next," Wilson said. Throughout the day, more discoveries emerged. Jessica had replaced kitchen appliances with expensive new versions. She had ordered new furniture that hadn't been delivered yet. She had even begun repainting rooms in colors she preferred. "She was erasing us," Maya said as they found Laura's gardening books dumped in the garage. "Not anymore," Mark promised, helping the twins return the books to their proper place on the shelf. "This is our home, not hers." In the afternoon, Sarah Jenkins arrived with a thick folder of papers. "The divorce filing is complete," she announced. "Given the circumstances, it should be finalized quickly, and I've submitted paperwork to reverse any financial changes Jessica tried to make." "Thank you for everything, Sarah," Mark said sincerely. Sarah smiled. "I also have some news you might find interesting." After Jessica's schemes became public, 2 men from Arizona and Nevada contacted authorities. They claimed they were victims of the same scam. The men Robert Keller mentioned, Mark realized. Sarah nodded. "One is still in prison. The other was released last year. Both cases are being reviewed now thanks to the evidence your daughters uncovered." The twins, who had been listening from the doorway, entered the room. "Does that mean they'll be free too?" Mia asked. "Very likely," Sarah confirmed. "Your evidence didn't just save your dad. It might help other families as well." Later that evening, Mark received a call from Thomas Palmer, the owner of the accounting firm where he had worked. "Mark, I can't apologize enough for how quickly we believed those accusations," Palmer said. "Your position is waiting for you, with a promotion to senior manager and full back pay for the time you were away." "I appreciate that, Thomas," Mark replied, emotion making his voice rough. "When would you like me to start?" "Whenever you're ready, take the time you need with your family first." After he hung up, Mark shared the news with Eleanor and the twins. "I have my job back, with a promotion." "That's wonderful, son," Eleanor said, squeezing his hand. "Does that mean everything goes back to normal?" Maya asked. "A better normal," Mark promised. "One where we appreciate each other even more." As evening fell, neighbors began appearing at the door, one after another. Mrs. Chen brought a homemade lasagna. The Johnsons, including Billy, who had bullied the twins at school, brought a chocolate cake and sincere apologies. Mr. Garcia, who lived 3 houses down, offered to help fix the fence that had fallen into disrepair during Mark's absence. "We should have known better," Mrs. Johnson said, shame evident in her voice. "Billy will be making amends at school, too." By bedtime, the kitchen counter was filled with food brought by neighbors trying to make things right. "People are basically good," Eleanor observed as she put leftovers in the refrigerator. "They just sometimes forget to show it." That night, Mark tucked the twins into their own beds for the first time in months. "Try to get some sleep," he told them. "Tomorrow will be better." He had just fallen asleep himself when a scream jolted him awake. He rushed to Mia's room to find her sitting up in bed, trembling. "She was here," Mia gasped. "Jessica was in my room trying to take me away." "It was just a dream, sweetheart," Mark soothed, holding her close. "Jessica is far away. She can't hurt us anymore." Maya appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Is Mia okay?" "Just a nightmare," Mark explained. "Why don't you both sleep in my room tonight?" With the twins safely nestled on either side of him in his big bed, Mark stared at the ceiling, thinking about the road ahead. The practical problems were being solved: his job, the house, the legal issues. But the emotional wounds would take longer to heal. The next morning, Detective Wilson stopped by with more updates. "Jessica's company is under investigation," he reported. "It appears she was embezzling funds for years, not just the money she claimed you stole. What will happen to her employees?" Mark asked, concerned. "The business will likely be sold to pay back investors," Wilson explained, "but most of the staff should keep their jobs under new management." Wilson hesitated before continuing. "There's something else you should know. We found evidence that Jessica researched Laura's medical history before she ever accidentally met you at that coffee shop." Mark felt cold. "What do you mean?" "She specifically targeted widowers whose wives died of long illnesses," Wilson explained gently. "The expensive medical bills often left the families financially vulnerable, even with insurance." "She planned everything from the beginning," Mark said, the full weight of the deception hitting him anew. "I'm telling you this because there might be more victims we don't know about yet," Wilson said. "Your case could help find them." That afternoon, Mark took the twins to visit Laura's grave, something they hadn't been able to do while he was in jail. They brought fresh flowers and spent time talking to her, sharing everything that had happened. "Mom would have seen through Jessica right away," Maya said confidently. "Yes, she would have," Mark agreed, remembering Laura's remarkable intuition about people. "You girls have that same gift. You saw what the rest of us missed." As they walked back to the car, Mia looked up at her father. "Dad, how will we know if the next person who comes into our lives won't be like Jessica?" Mark stopped walking, struck by the profound question from his 8-year-old daughter. It was the same fear that had been keeping him awake at night. Mark knelt down to look directly into Mia's eyes. "That's a very smart question," he said. "The truth is, we can't know for certain about anyone, but we can be more careful. We can take time to really know people before letting them into our lives." Maya joined them. "And we can trust our feelings more. I never felt right about Jessica." "You both saw what I missed," Mark admitted. "From now on, we make big decisions together, as a family." 6 months later, the Thompson family had established a new rhythm to their lives. Mark sat at his desk at Palmer Financial, reviewing reports from his team. His promotion to senior manager came with a new office overlooking downtown Oakville. A photo of the twins and another of Laura sat prominently on his desk. His assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Thompson, your 2 o'clock appointment is here." "Send him in, please," Mark replied. A middle-aged man entered nervously. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Thompson. I'm William Parker." Mark stood to shake his hand. "From Nevada. Please sit down." William Parker was one of Jessica's previous victims, recently released from prison after his case was reopened. "I still can't believe this happened to someone else," he said. "When I was convicted, I lost everything. My home, my reputation, access to my son, who... I know exactly how that feels," Mark said. "That's why we started the support group, to help people rebuild." The support group for families affected by false accusations had begun 3 months earlier in the community center. What started as a small gathering of the Thompson family and William Parker had grown to include 15 families from 4 different states. "My son is 17 now," William said sadly. "He barely knows me anymore." "Bring him to the meeting on Thursday," Mark suggested. "The group has been good for my daughters. It might help your son understand what happened." After William left, Mark checked the time. He needed to pick up the twins from school for their appointment with Dr. Morgan, the child psychologist who had helped prepare them for court. At Oakville Elementary, Maya and Mia were finishing their day. Both girls had adjusted well in the months since their father's return, though occasional nightmares still disrupted their sleep. "Maya Thompson," Mrs. Rodriguez called as the twins passed her office. "Officer Ramirez is waiting for you." Maya grinned and hurried into the counselor's office, where Officer Luis Ramirez sat in a child-sized chair looking slightly uncomfortable. "Ready for your interview?" he asked. "Yes, sir." Maya had developed a strong interest in law enforcement after their ordeal. Officer Ramirez was helping her with a school project about police work. Just 5 questions today, Mrs. Rodriguez reminded them. Your father will be here soon. In the school library, Mia attended her weekly coding club. She sat focused on a laptop screen, typing commands carefully. That's excellent work, Mia, Mr. Baker, the technology teacher, praised. You've really taken to programming. Mia nodded seriously. I want to learn how to find hidden things on computers, like digital forensics. Her interest in computers had blossomed after seeing how digital evidence had helped free her father. Now she spent hours learning everything she could about technology. When Mark arrived, he found Maya with Officer Ramirez and Mia in the computer lab. Dad, Maya called. Officer Ramirez showed me how police radios work, and I made a program that organizes photos by date, Mia added, showing her father the laptop screen. That's wonderful, Mark said proudly, but we need to get to Dr. Morgan's office. During their therapy session, Dr. Morgan asked about their feelings regarding Jessica's recent trial. I wasn't scared, Maya declared. I'm glad she's in jail where she can't hurt anyone else. What about you, Mia? Dr. Morgan asked gently. Mia considered the question carefully. I feel sad, not for Jessica, but for everyone she tricked, all those families that got broken. Jessica had finally been caught in Canada 2 months ago. Her trial was swift, with overwhelming evidence against her. She had accepted a plea deal for 15 years in prison rather than face charges in multiple states. And you, Mark? Dr. Morgan asked. How are you processing everything? Mark smiled at his daughters. I'm focused on rebuilding, on making our lives stronger than before. Part of that rebuilding included cautiously beginning to date again. Mark had met Rachel Lawson at the support group 3 months ago. Her husband had been wrongfully convicted in an unrelated case and had died in prison before his name could be cleared. As a fellow single parent, she understood Mark's priorities and concerns. Will Rachel come to our barbecue tomorrow? Maya asked as they drove home. Yes, with her son Tyler, Mark confirmed. Is that okay with you both? I like Rachel, Mia said. She doesn't try too hard like Jessica did. And Tyler knows all about Star Wars, Maya added approvingly. The next day, exactly 1 year after Mark's exoneration, the Thompson backyard was filled with friends celebrating their journey. Detective Wilson flipped burgers on the grill while Eleanor chatted with neighbors. The new Thompson rule is already making a difference, Wilson told Mark. Every financial crime case now requires secondary verification of evidence and careful examination of accusers' backgrounds. I'm glad something good came from our experience, Mark said. Wilson nodded toward the twins who were playing with other children. Those two changed how I approach every case now. I listen to children more carefully. Rachel Lawson approached with 2 lemonades, handing one to Mark. At 41, she had a warm smile and practical nature that put everyone at ease. Your neighbors are wonderful, she commented. Mrs. Chen just offered to teach me her secret dumpling recipe. This community really came together after everything happened, Mark explained. They felt guilty for judging me too quickly. People often get second chances to do the right thing, Rachel observed. Sarah Jenkins arrived with news about Jessica's case. They've identified 2 more victims in different states, she reported. Your daughter's evidence is still helping people. They're extraordinary, Mark said, watching Maya demonstrate a karate move to Tyler while Mia explained something about computers to another child. Mrs. Rodriguez joined their conversation. Maya announced today she wants to be a lawyer when she grows up. She said she wants to help innocent people. Mark laughed. Yesterday she wanted to be a police officer. Last week it was a detective. Whatever path she chooses, she'll be fighting for justice, Sarah said. As evening approached, Mark gathered everyone for a toast. The backyard fell quiet as he raised his glass. 1 year ago today, truth prevailed and our family was reunited, he began. We've learned painful lessons about trust and justice, but we've also learned about courage, especially from Maya and Mia. The twins stood a little taller at their father's praise. We've learned that sometimes the smallest detectives solve the biggest cases, Mark continued, smiling at his daughters. And we've learned that while bad things happen, good people help you rebuild afterward. Eleanor wiped away a tear as Mark concluded. To truth, to justice, and to second chances, he said, raising his glass higher. To truth, justice, and second chances, everyone echoed. Later that night, after all the guests had gone home, Mark tucked the sleepy twins into bed. For the first time in months, neither girl asked to leave a light on or check under the bed for monsters. The real monsters they had faced, betrayal, loss, fear, were finally beginning to fade. "Dad?" Mia asked drowsily. "Are we really okay now?" "Yes, sweetheart," Mark assured her. "We're more than okay." "Because we have each other," Maya added, already half asleep. "Exactly," Mark agreed, kissing each girl's forehead. "We have each other, and that's what matters most." As Mark closed their bedroom door, he paused to look at Laura's photo in the hallway. "They're so much like you," he whispered. "Strong, smart, and brave." Downstairs, Mark found Eleanor washing the last dishes. "Leave those for tomorrow, Mom," he said. "You should rest." "Just finishing up," Eleanor insisted. "It was a beautiful party. Laura would have loved it." "Yes, she would have," Mark agreed. After Eleanor went to bed, Mark stepped into the backyard. The string lights still glowed softly, illuminating the space where friends and family had gathered to celebrate their journey from darkness back to light. A year ago, Mark Thompson had been a broken man in a jail cell, separated from his children and facing years in prison for crimes he didn't commit. Now he stood under the stars, a free man surrounded by love and possibility. He thought about Maya's interest in justice and Mia's fascination with uncovering digital truths. He remembered their courage when facing Jessica in court and their resilience during the months of rebuilding. His daughters had saved him, but they had also saved themselves by refusing to be victims. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Mark knew the Thompson family would face them together, stronger and wiser than before. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.